I tend to start out with the sound because for me sound is much more ambiguous and it's maybe more emotionally potent. And then I'll work some visuals as a kind of counterpoint to the story that's being told in the sound, which is actually the opposite way that it's usually done. Usually you make a film and then you find some music to counterpoint the emotional ideas, but for me I do it the other way. Well, I studied to be a filmmaker, and I really was very, very devoted to the films of Fellini. And I think that Fellini is, of the filmmakers, he is the most fluent in both pictures and sound. He really merges those ideas together. But then when I came out of school and I tried to make movies, it's very, very expensive. So I had to give up my dream for a little bit. But as I began to do work with sound, I took the visual ideas and the storytelling ideas that I wanted to do in film and brought them into the musical construction. So I think that my approach to music is a very visual approach because I learned the visual storytelling first. Lyric writing comes at the very end of my process, and I try to avoid as much as I can writing lyrics. I'm a bit uncomfortable with the idea of defining anything too strictly. It's like when you're becoming an adult and people ask you, what do you do for a living, or what are you? It's such a weird question, you know, like, have I done enough music that I can call myself a musician? Have I done enough visual design that I can call myself a visual artist? It just makes me very uncomfortable. And music has the similar situation. It's this beautiful, ambiguous, potent sound. And when you start putting words, you start to kind of tie down the meaning. Sometimes it can be great, and obviously some people use lyrics as a different level of adding interesting ambiguity. But for me, it's the last thing that I like to do. When I first started to make performance videos, there were two kinds of videos that I'd make. There was one that was a way to do an actual live performance with all of my voices, and that way would be to cluster separate performances together. So it just made sense to call it a cluster video. But then I had to differentiate that from the more formal videos, and I chose opus because it's a term that relates to musical forms as well. And again, my visuals are always very musical in form. When I was in film school, I was obsessed with the idea of making a film that was so physical that you could walk through it, and when you were finished watching it, you could physically see its shape. You know, you could recall as if you had gone through a physical environment. And I think that I've carried that idea into my experimental visual work as well, because I'm always taking in very, very visual environments and clustering them in a kind of physical way. I like to use very, very simple means to record the content for my videos, and I like never to use a tripod. I like to use a handheld camera because my personality and my rhythms are inevitably reflected in the footage. So if I'm shooting, for instance, footage of Huesca, some part of myself is actually reflected in that footage. So it's just as much a self-portrait as it is a landscape that I'm shooting. It's so hard to talk about it when you're engaged in it, because your experience of making something is very abstract. And my experience of working on this piece for Huesca is similarly abstract. I've never been to Spain before. I've never been to Huesca, obviously. So everything has been strange and new. And what I'm hoping to create in this piece is a sense of that wonder that I'm experiencing when I'm seeing this for the first time. Hopefully the audience will see the city in a new way. Because I think in life, you get used to what you're living in, and you know, a tree is a tree and a chair is a chair, and you're done with it. But sometimes you need a little push, or something needs to be broken, something needs to be put in a strange context to see it for what it is. And that's what I've tried to do with the Huesca piece. For me, both my visual work and my music work is really geared towards recreating that sense of wonder that you have when you're a child. When you're first born or you're growing up, you're experiencing everything for the first time. And so everything is strange and everything is scary and everything is moving. And I guess I got addicted to that, and I've missed it as I became an adult, and have tried to shoot things that are very simple and break them open so that people can experience that sense of wonder again that they might have when they were a child.